Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 66 of Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger, sitting here on the East Coast. Pop Detective Records is my fame. Joining me, as usual, my good friend from out the West Coast way, the guru of the International Pop Overthrow Festival, Mr. David Bash. How are you this evening, David?
I'm doing well, Mark. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's a beautiful day here in South Jersey. The heat's still there, but the humidity has dropped. So enjoying the last vestiges of August in the summer. Heading quickly towards the fall, which is okay with me.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had a lot of hot weather this year. I know.
It's been convection oven hot here in South Jersey.
Yeah, we've had our usual, high 90s consistently for the past few weeks. But again, it's a very dry heat. I mean, people in more humid climates, they hear high 90s, they freak out. But out here, it's not so bad. I mean, you don't want to be standing out in it forever, but it's not oppressive like it can be, like that kind of temperature is back there. And, we're used to it. So it's been that way. Hey, Andy, did the CDs show up? I have a feeling no. I still have to find out what is going on.
Where's Andy? Is Andy outside London? Where's Andy?
Yeah, he's around that area.
All right.
It seems like the ones I sent to the UK haven't gotten there, while every other place in Europe they've been received. So I know, like I said, I use a different method for sending them, not by choice, but because that was what I was advised by the post office, and not yet. See. Either they screwed up or it's just going to take longer to get there. I don't know. But I apologize for that, Andy, and I'm going to look into what's going on. But anyway, speaking of, I didn't speak. I just said the CDs, so I didn't actually speak of IPO, but it was understood by some. We just finished International Pop Overthrow near Sheffield, in San Francisco, and had a really great time. It was wonderful being back at Hotel Utah, which is a really unique venue. It's very small, but it's got a balcony, so it's like a miniature opera house. It's quite cool, and the sound is better than it was when we were there pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. And the staff is very cool. Yeah, this was our best. This was probably our favorite time being at Hotel Utah, and lots of amazing bands.
Oh, the Bongos are in Havertown Music Festival this Saturday. All right. Good job, Bowie.
How far is Havertown from you, Mark?
40 minutes, maybe.
Oh, okay. Not too bad.
Not bad.
So anyway, so that happened. And then the following day, Sunday, I went on our way home. We stopped at the Canyon Club in Agoura, which is just west of the San Fernando Valley. And I had the great pleasure and honor of introducing both the Malibus, featuring Walter Egan,
right,
of Magnet and Steel fame, and the Smithereens.
Wow,
And in honor of that, I have this T-shirt that I picked up there. It's they said very few left, so I figured I better get it. Mm-hmm. It's got the
Ramones style,
Ramones insignia, but with the four Smithereens names. Now, of course, Pat is no longer with us, tragically, and Mike isn't playing with the band regularly these days. But I got to meet and speak with Marshall Crenshaw for a while. Really nice guy, and I'm a huge fan. And I spoke with the other guys as well. So I'm still really thrilled that they asked me to do it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So that was fun.
And you handled it well. I saw the YouTube clip. You handled it well.
I handled it well, but let me tell you something. I could not stand watching that clip because I looked as fat as fuck, and
we'll have to edit that and use a slimming software.
Yeah, I know. Really, why didn't I think of that? But what are you going to do?
It was great. Whatever.
I'm a slave to the potato chips.
And we're going to cover that soon.
Yeah, I know.
The box hasn't arrived.
I am going to make a concerted effort to lose weight at some point.
After our episode on the potato chips. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, after these IPOs are done, I usually wait till New Year's, and that's a good time to start because I have a lot of. Maybe I'll start in December. All right, John Borat. Yeah. Mark knows what that's about because it's from the Great American Baseball Card, flipping, trading, and bubblegum.
Exactly right.
Well, we could talk about my weight issue for hours, but I'd rather not do that. I think we have something a lot more interesting than that coming up, and it's our pleasure to have as our guest on episode 66. We're definitely going to get our kicks in episode 66 with this gentleman who's that would be an absolute thrill. Now, okay. Hey, Stacy, good to see you. I want to thank Stacy Alexander for setting this up. I mean, I've known John for a while, but she suggested that I contact him to do this, and she facilitated it. So we appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Stacy.
Anyway, this gentleman is well known as a writer for Rolling Stone and Cream, of course, for writing the liner notes to the Kinks Chronicles, for fronting a band that never did quite get their due. I wish they had, because I think they're excellent. Christopher Milk, and these days he's still doing music, doing some comedy. He'll tell us more about that. It's going to be interesting and very irreverent because that's the kind of guy he's always been. And so he's more notorious than anything else, but not in an evil way, more in kind of an amusing way. And this is why this is going to be a very fun interview. Would you please give a huge material issues welcome to Mr. John Mendelsohn? Hey, John.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
Good to see you.
Today, I love it. How are you this evening, John? Good question.
Not as usual,
Well,
You're
John,
trying to think of something irreverent, and it didn't come to mind.
you keep
Mark,
talking.
where'd you go?
I'm here. Just keep talking.
Okay.
My camera.
Yeah, so you're coming to us from London or near London?
Richmond on Thames in southwest London.
Oh, nice. I have not been there, but it sounds beautiful. Just the name alone.
Well, it's where, what was that place called? The Crawdaddy Club. It was, kind of where the Stones, the Stones equivalent of the Cavern.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's now a delicious restaurant.
Wow. Well, we'll have to go next time we're in the UK. Which
I have a neighbor who noted that somebody in Liverpool was making a lot of money conducting Beatles tours. Where you can go and see the Cavern, and then the guide can explain to you that it isn't really the Cavern because the original Cavern was knocked down to make a parking lot. But so this neighbor of mine he's trying to do a London equivalent of those Beatles tours, and he takes you to the what used to be the Crawdaddy Club, but it's leading up to that. That's the real fun part, because you get on a bus and you drive through London, and he says things like, "Do you see that McDonald's? Yes, that used to be the Chelsea drugstore."
I almost went on that tour, actually.
I think you saved $25.
Well, that's one thing to be thankful for. So anyway, John, we'll certainly get to what you're doing today, because I know you want to talk about that, and we certainly want to hear about it. But let's just start in the beginning. One of the things that I noticed in reading about you, and this is certainly different from, well, there's a lot of things about you that are different, but the one thing that was very striking as a child is when you saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, you were not impressed.
Oh, I was fairly impressed, but not impressed enough to set the West Side Story soundtrack aside, because I was I worshipped at the altar of Stephen Sondheim even at 16.
And what was the reaction of, let's say, your friends that were going crazy?
Let me ask you, Mark, what do you mean by friends? What?
Your acquaintances, neighborhood pals.
John, I'm with you on that one.
Okay, I think I had some acquaintances by virtue of being a high school student, but I didn't talk to them.
Well, you know, at the time, everybody, of course, jumping up and down over the Ed Sullivan Show and the Beatles' appearance. But if you were, if you were trumpeting West Side Story, you had to have been in a minority.
Well, yeah, I guess, but when have I not been in the minority?
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
My mother said something memorable during the performance. I think they did. Till There Was You is their second song. Is that right? And she said, well, at least they do nice songs. It was, what was it? 1957, I think. I had watched Elvis on Ed Sullivan, and she pronounced him. I said, well, at least he's good looking. And she sort of sneered and said, no, he isn't.
Really?
Yeah.
She didn't find him vulgar in any way, like some people did?
She wasn't letting on.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so let's get past that. So
yeah.
Then a year passed, and I saw this film called A Hard Day's Night, and then everything else went out the window. Then I decided, I wanted to be the Beatles when I grew up. And
yeah, I mean, they'll get you one way or another. They'll get you in the end.
In a few months, I'd formed a band at my high school, and there's been no stopping me ever since.
How did you?
Conversely, no starting me.
How did I love where the sense of humor comes from. I love it. How did you get started musically? Were you a piano lesson guy? Did your parents?
I wish. How I wish. I grew up in the least musical household in human history. I mean, every 6 months they might turn the radio on, but nothing more musical than that. But I attended the bar mitzvah of my best friend, and the entertainment was provided by Mr. Robert Bright, who led the local junior high school orchestra. He had a combo. These weren't the days when you would hire a bar mitzvah band and they'd play Smoke on the Water. This was like Dixieland jazz. The guy played a clarinet,
right.
But the drummer had these sparkly blue drums, and I was transfixed. And there were children literally hanging off the clarinet player, and I thought, I can envision a life like this.
John, I didn't have that kind of band. I didn't have a rock band at my bar mitzvah either. They were playing standards. I mean, I didn't have that many friends there. It was mostly adults, so of course they catered to them.
Yeah,
so I hear you.
And what was it?
What's that word? It's called a bris in Hebrew.
Yeah.
What? Circumcision. Yeah.
Circumcision, right.
After circumcision, the entertainment at one's bar mitzvah is the second most agonizing thing he will have to go through.
No kidding.
That's awesome.
So you went to UCLA, and I guess your major was sociology. Had you thought about becoming a journalist in any way? Or was that just a hobby at that time?
Oh, it was just a hobby, and I wanted to study psychology, but I found it too difficult. So I guess we should get this out of the way. I had Italian 101 with Russell Mael.
Oh,
No.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We eyed each other suspiciously across the room because we were two of around maybe 20 guys at UCLA with long hair. So, these were the days when you would walk by the football team and football with your girlfriend, and the football team would say, "Which one's the girl?"
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And probably using other derogatory names that we don't want to say on
No,
anymore.
I don't.
Different time. Yeah,
I-
indeed. And
What
what?
what was your first impression of Ron at that time? I mean,
No.
did he seem like your kind of guy initially?
Russell.
Immediately?
What was my
Oh,
first
Russell,
impression
sorry.
of Russell? I thought Russell was very standoffish because
Oh.
I kept sending him longing glances and I got no response at all.
Yeah, how dare he?
Ron is actually the more approachable, or at least the more approachable seeming. But let's not talk about Sparks.
Okay.
Musically, though,
We'll talk about Half Nelson then.
Half Nelson.
That's the band I was in.
Yeah.
So, what were you playing in your first band? When you said you were enamored with the drums, were you
Drums.
You were the drummer.
Because I'd been inspired by my friend's bar mitzvah, and I joined the junior high school orchestra, and I played percussion, which meant that I learned how to hold drumsticks. And so I thought, when I saw Hard Day's Night, I thought to myself, well, I already know how to grip the drumsticks. I'm halfway there.
Excuse me for a minute, John.
You're halfway there. You got the drumsticks.
An impression that my bandmates didn't share. But I think I have some drumsticks here.
Oh, there you go.
Too. Because I was playing drums as recently as 3 years ago here in London in my own group called the Freudian Sluts, and I was the drummer. So, do a little bit of this.
Freudian sluts.
Mark, you probably want to ask me about the traditional grip, my left hand.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just happened. I hadn't played for years. I'd always played like this, and then when I resumed it.
Well, that's not what you got from watching Ringo. That's more what you got from watching Charlie.
Yeah, but I think Charlie at the time was using the.
Yeah, probably.
Well, let's not talk about Charlie.
Can we talk about Ralph Oswald?
Loud Boggle?
Ralph Oswald.
I'm not sure quite how to respond.
The Ralph Oswald?
Oh, I get foggy.
Your bandmate?
Oh, my bandmates. Which ones?
Your bandmate Ralph Oswald, who.
Oh yes, I remember him.
I'm sure you do. You also met him at UCLA, right?
He was a little bit terrifying, Ralph. Still might be. He was very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He'd be soft-spoken and placid one moment, and then the next moment he'd be dangerous. But the girls loved him. The girls, we couldn't. Christopher Milk couldn't go out in public together to eat because, word would get around and the girls would swarm to the coffee shop. And they all wanted Ralph because he had that element of danger about him.
I don't know. I thought you were the handsomest guy in the band, but
that's very kind of you, David. It didn't work with Russell Mael, did it?
No. That's tough competition.
So Ralph is tuning pianos in Colorado as we speak.
Oh, good.
But we're not in touch,
No.
It's like it's all over between us. We're two very different people.
Mm-hmm. No.
But at the time, you obviously meshed well enough with him to be in a band. And where did
anyone with a pulse would have worked for me. And Ralph could play the guitar a little bit, so I said, "You're in." Much like now, I seem to repel prospective collaborators. So the fact that somebody was actually willing to collaborate was a breathtaking thing. And we moved mountains together artistically. I mean, I think that the critics and the public were in accord about that.
No, there was one person who was actually in accord about that, and that was David Bowie. He apparently really loved you guys.
He couldn't get enough of us.
And I mean, that's
he would call. He was in London, and he'd gone back to London. I was in Los Angeles. He would call in the middle of the night. He would say, "John, did you remember to tape your last rehearsal for me?" And I'd say, "Oh."
Really? Wow.
I mean, he just loved the band.
Now, what's the genesis though? You said you played in high school. You got a band going on in high school. At post high school, you were writing before you got Christopher Milk underway, correct?
Well, Christopher Milk existed before I began writing, but on such a small scale. It was me and Ralph and a revolving door cast of clowns and scoundrels.
So
then I began writing, and the world became my oyster. So I said, why should I fool around with a band that isn't that much fun when I could be just walking across campus and attracting, like, as Ralph would later, a horde of girls, some of them beautiful. If there were 20, maybe 8 to 10 would be in the 7 to 9 range, and then as many as 3 would be 7 to 10.
Yeah.
Why not 17?
Not that it was my intention to objectify them in any way.
No, not at that time period. No.
Okay, good. So you ended up writing for Rolling Stone more or less on a lark. They had an ad saying, if you're interested, submit something, and
that's
you
right.
did.
The ad, the exact wording was, anyone who can fog a mirror. So they got a lot of contestants, but I guess they liked the cut of my jib, as Russell Mael had not, and they had me writing, and it was a glamorous life, extremely well paying.
Right.
I had free tickets to things. I could go to the Whiskey A Go-Go at will and not pay a cent. And I'll tell you a Whiskey A Go-Go story. There was a famous publicist named Connie DeNave. I think she was New York based. She was real heavyweight. She would get hired for the big shots. And somebody hired her to publicize this band in LA, the identity of which I've forgotten. But I'd never met her face to face. But, I was kind of the person.
Mm-hmm.
The person. So she called me up and she said, "Oh, John, please, this group is going to be very, very big. You want to be in on the ground floor. You've got to come." So I agreed to go, and then I went to the club, and I was standing in a sort of the pit area, the dancing area, while this band was playing that I didn't like very much. And this woman stepped back on my foot in stilettos. It was painful. She turned around and looked at me, had no idea who I was, didn't tender a response, and turned back around. Yes, that woman was Connie DeNave, who in our phone call had said, John, we're old friends. Aren't we old friends? I mean, I've got a million of these stories. I could just.
I love it, but online it does mention your love of Nick Cohn and his reviews, and how you really became an imitator of his review style.
A shameless imitator.
Shameless.
A shameless
And
imitator.
I can absolutely see it. I love the, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a sarcasm that you have about the way you look at a lot, especially some more popular things. But how did you get to know Nick Cohn and his reviews? What were you reading? How did you find out about his stuff?
There was a magazine that existed for about 3 issues called EYE, and it was like a hipster magazine, and Nick was in it, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought it was so good, and I thought to myself, I could do that, and if not that, a reasonable imitation of that.
And is that kind of what you set out to do at that point? Was a reasonable imitation of how much you loved the way he wrote?
Well, I would have liked to have been a good writer myself, but I wasn't, so I needed somebody good to imitate. And I was a reasonably adept imitator.
Yeah. No,
Of course, 2 of the reviews you're most infamous for are the reviews of the first 2 Led Zeppelin albums, which appeared in Rolling Stone.
Oh yes. People love to talk about that to this day.
But I mean, you weren't afraid to be honest with your feelings. Unlike a lot of people who are
I was
catering
sort
to
of
labels.
courage made flesh. Courage made flesh.
No, it's true. I mean, I see it. I was reading today. I was reading a Nick Cohn thing on his review of Abbey Road, and it just cracked me up. I had never written or read a lot of those things, and that's what led me to read a lot of your reviews, and I can see the similarities. But just really interesting take on stuff, and having the balls to say what you wanted to say about it.
Right, that was different from anybody else because they were all catering to the labels.
Oh no, I don't think that's the case. And I did it only because I lived in a military bunker that had been in Laurel Canyon. It was a bunker, and it had been built for this top military guy. So, in case of nuclear attack, he could go into this bunker. So, and I was down there and I had this steel door with four deadbolts on it. Yeah. So I mean, I could write pretty much what I wanted. I had friends deliver groceries every now and again, and
I saw this movie.
The septic tank needed emptying, every month and a half. But
besides that, it was great, right?
What would you say the percentage of reviews that you wrote were positive?
41.
41? I was going to say 39, so I guess we're close.
There's only one thing. Well, that's not true, but there's only one thing I've really loved about Bob Dylan. He gave a press conference. It's on YouTube, and it gets a lot of views. He gave a press conference in San Francisco in 1965 when he was kind of magical. He was terrific at that time. And among the hipsters, there were these real straight sort of people from Newsweek and so on. And one of them said, Bob, how many folk singers would you say there are? And Bob thought about it, and he puffed on his cigarette, and he looked at the ceiling, and he said, 41. So that's my tribute to Bob.
Not nice. And all right, here's something that if people didn't know, you will be infamous for now. You skipped your college graduation to interview Pete Townsend. That right. Is badass.
That's right. Well,
was it worth it?
You have to understand that I went to a university that had 280,000 graduating undergraduates. They had rented a number of stadia around the city so that it could be simulcast, but there were about 30,000 people in each stadium. So the thought of that compared to looking into Pete's limpid blue eyes and asking him the questions I'd always wanted to ask him. that isn't really the case, because there are things there are things I shouldn't interrupt, because there are so many things you probably want to find out about me.
Well, yeah. But that's okay. I mean, if you have something to expound upon, we want to hear it.
Oh yeah, indeed. How about some of your favorite interviews from your career? Which ones really stand out? I mean, you got to have some that are.
Well, I think I'll do this, but then I'd like to start talking about me, because, and I'll tell you why. Because, well, I have a song, and the chorus goes, "It's all about me, magnificent me, beautiful me, wonderful me, spectacular me." So I don't want to talk about people I've interviewed, but I will tell you that I did an interview with Peter Noon at one point.
Wow.
And he was a spectacular interview. An interesting thing about him is he's about 3 feet tall. He's shorter than Tom Petty. But he welcomed me into the house where I guess he was living there. And I set up my tape recorder, and he began talking. And then for the next 45 minutes, it didn't matter if I was there. I could have gone and had a swim in the pool. He just kept talking. And the talking was really good. I mean, he was funny and charming, and he had interesting stories. So, I mean, that was really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of not having to work hard. But anyway, there's probably something you want to find out about me.
Yeah.
There is. But the last thing I want to ask you about Peter Noon is, was he shorter than Gee Whiz?
I think about the same height.
Okay.
Little tiny people with their little stumpy legs. It's the cutest thing in the world.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Gee Whiz was the drummer of Christopher Milk, and I have here a white label promo of the album. Some people will drink anything.
I see myself there at a younger age, obviously.
That is you on the right, yes. And,
with my nipples showing.
With your nipples showing, yeah, which none of the other guys, unfortunately, did. But
well, you can see the kiddo how longingly he's looking at the nipple. If you
he's looking directly at it.
we were just very close friends.
John, can I ask where did the name Christopher Milk even come from?
Well, it was the name of a dairy in San Francisco, and I went up to San Francisco with Ralph. And I think I was under the influence of hallucinogens. And this was a time that Alice Cooper and I guess it was just Alice Cooper and Molly Hatchet, who were very, very big favorites of mine. And so I saw the name of this dairy on the side of a truck, Christopher Milk. It was a dairy. And I thought, Christopher Milk, imagine that if that were a person's name, how hilarious that would be.
Right, yeah.
And being under the influence of hallucinogens, I just thought that hysterically funny.
And the album title followed from that? Some people will drink anything?
The album title, we had a famous English producer who went on to produce the Sex Pistols and Paul McCartney and other Elton John, other notables. And I said that I wanted the title to be "Some People Will Drink Anything," being sort of a self-deprecating remark about Christopher Milk. And he said, no, you have to have the two in there. And because I could sense that this man was destined for greatness, as witnessed the people he later worked with, I deferred to his judgment.
This would be Chris Thomas.
That would be.
Produced Badfinger also, I believe.
Badfinger. I caught a glimpse of him in the recent Beatles Getting Back special.
Oh, yeah.
There was Chris.
I heard about that, yeah.
Now, I don't remember I honestly don't remember the reviews of the album. What I do remember is I really loved songs like Tiger, A Secondhand Viola, and especially In Search of R. Crumb. Were Were you a fan of Robert Crumb's comics?
Oh God, yes. You know, that's another experience I had where I couldn't stop laughing for about a day and a half, and people were becoming worried on a medical level. I saw a comic book of his called Despair, and it depicted a woman in a chair looking out this window. It was just utter gloom, and her husband was saying to her, no, she was saying to him, why don't you see if there's anything good on?
Oh, yeah.
And his response was, why bother? And I thought, that's the most poignant evocation of the human experience I've ever seen on the cover of a comic book.
And you ended up using that as the opening to the song.
Yes, that's right. My girlfriend at the time, yeah, that's right.
And John, you were responsible for the lyrics for the album, for most of the lyrics?
Yes, and I wrote one song, but that was before I really knew what I was doing musically. So it was a primitive song. It was kind of a very awkward song, but Chris Thomas thought it was really good. And, and Chris was destined for greatness. And you can tell from the really good job he did on our album that, I'm saying that ironically.
I know.
Yeah.
No, it was great. Whose idea was the locomotion? Was that just...
Well, Ralph was in a splinter group for a while, and the splinter group began to play it, and I was overcome with jealousy, and I said, you have to quit that other group, and we have to play that song. And he didn't quit the group, but we played that song. The lucky thing was that he already knew it, you see.
Yeah.
From the other group.
Very
but
fortunate.
Anyway, let's talk about my more recent work.
Let's talk about it. And we got
only yesterday. I've been working on a comedy project, and it's Python-esque humor. It's sort of absurdist, and it's built on wordplay, and I think that people who don't wear red caps will enjoy it. And I see that at the bottom of the screen, there's a link where people can go. Yeah. So this is what I'm doing at the moment. Now, in 2021, I had an ambitious project. I was going to write and record a new album every month of the year because no one knew when COVID was going to end. And so I undertook this project, and I think I got up to October when circumstances prevented my continuing. But 80 songs, many of which are, unbelievably good, just of a quality that can barely be imagined. Others I listen back to today and I think, well, I'm not sure that I'm not sure about that one. But, there's some country songs because I became infatuated with country music. I performed country music. Yeah, I became, yeah. Oh, wait, I wonder if I have it. No, I don't have it, but I had a brief busking career. Busking, I was performing country songs with the original backing tracks. And I did this. Well, thank you, Bestie. Thank you very much. The backing tracks. So I was busking in Kingston, which you recognize as the origin of who? Of what famous group?
Kingston, UK?
Yes.
Oh, darn.
That would be the Yardbirds.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you've heard of the Yardbirds.
Oh, anyway, yeah.
So I would busk, and I busked in front of Richmond Station, and the public's reaction was almost completely predictable. So, but I love doing it because I love singing these songs like George Jones. He Stopped Loving Her Today, which is spectacularly maudlin and just ever so much fun to sing. And people would be so intent on ignoring me that I would gesticulate madly while singing, and every song was invested with great emotion. Like my current series, I'm not aware, but I do these impromptu videos that I am going to collect at the end called Great Hits of the 60s.
All right, tell us more about that.
No, you'd have to watch the videos to understand the joke. And to this point, I'd say approximately 40% of the people who watch them don't get the joke.
Oh, all right.
You mean 41%?
Yeah, 41%.
No, I wouldn't say it's over 40 here, but I do appreciate that 41.
So John, what you're doing today, though, how does the comedy manifest itself? Is it just online, or are you?
It is at the moment, but I'm hoping to approach the BBC. I'd like to get a great many listeners and some visible enthusiasm, so I could take to the BBC and say, "Look what I have for you. How can you turn something like this down? It's inconceivable to me. What is this? This is a conspiracy. What's going on here?" That sort of thing.
That's what you want to do. All right.
Yeah.
Well, as we said, the link is at the bottom. So anybody who wants to get onto your SoundCloud page and check out the comedy side, please do. And let's cause a stir.
I wrote a sketch today about the Satanist pedophilic liberals that are doing human trafficking out of a pizzeria in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah, I know there's a political bent in what you're doing.
Yeah. But I kind of did that character a little bit because the guy is explaining how he became a Satanist, and it was because of his frustration as a Christian. He'd wanted to be born again, but his mother said, "What? After 9 hours of agony, the 9 hours of agony I experienced, you want me to do this again?"
You want me to do it again?
Yeah. Well, you can see. I think you can see from what we're doing here and saying here that it was side-splittingly hilarious.
Yes, indeed. How about music-wise? What do you got going on?
Are you still working with Freudian sluts?
Well, I work with the guitar player from the Freudian Sluts, who is a very dear friend of mine, and he lives right down the road. He lives near Kingston, in fact.
Okay.
He's South African, and his name is Daryl Dutoy, and we've recorded like an album's worth of songs that I began writing in Valencia last year, and those are on YouTube. That's called the Freudian Sluts, but with a succession of singers, because I can't bear the sound of my own voice. Much in which is to say that my feelings and the feelings of the public are match almost identically on that.
You finally see eye to eye.
Yeah, we see. That's it.
I love it. That's fantastic. Do you write anymore? Any passion to start reviewing again?
I've written a book that I'm going to be offering for sale soon called Rock and Droll. Rock and Droll. And, the part, spelled as Guns N' Roses spelled it. That is, I think it was a capital N and then an apostrophe, but no apostrophe to begin with, which I thought was wonderfully stupid. So I've appropriated it.
And what is this? What is this about?
Well, it's a series. I can send you a link to the movie and so on. But
yes, please.
It's ravings, and I made up things like I figured that I was going to write the least reliable rock reference book ever published. And that's what I set out to do. So I said things like, I identified the Beatles manager as Jeffrey Epstein, who later was involved in a sex scandal. But you can see it's just one thing after another with me. It's just like one thing after another.
You're being yourself, which
oh yeah. So
we
yeah,
certainly can't say about everybody. So
I'll tell you my party piece. I'll tell you my party piece from Christopher Milk. So Christopher Milk gets signed by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers gets us a prestigious gig at the Whiskey, where we're going to be opening for another of their acts called Foghat. Now, Foghat are English, which means that they have. It doesn't matter what they look like; their sexual allure is through the ceiling. So, every kind of nubile young wench in Hollywood comes out to meet Foghat, and they walk right past our dressing room, right past it. Even though the kiddo was really something in those days.
Yeah.
But okay, so we go on for our second set, and as we perform, I see these two girls approaching. Well, I'm going to say girls. They were about 17 or 18. They are approaching the stage in their impractical footwear and their extremely tight hot pants, and I think, oh yes. And they get closer to the stage, and they reach the edge of the stage, and they hand me a note, and I think, oh, this is everything I've ever dreamed of. And so I make a really lucky decision. Rather than reading the note, I do this rock and roll move of putting it down my trousers. And after the set, come back up to the living room, back up to the dressing room, like this, and I sit down and I fish the note out, and it says, "Get off. We want Foghat."
Oh, jeez.
So that was kind of.
You have it. And it hangs on your wall right back there to this day. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my picture of the Pits hangs on my wall, and there's a picture.
Oh,
there used to be a picture of David Bowie that I took with my own camera and everything.
Mm.
Now, what was the inspiration behind Waiting for Kate Bush, which, by the way, obviously was very prescient, given what's going on with her now?
A common situation. Somebody offered me some money, and I said, "Yes, please."
Hey,
It's as easy as that.
Chris Charlesworth at Omnibus Books had a list of people he wanted a book about, and it was well known that Kate Bush wouldn't talk to anybody. So I said, "I'll take Kate Bush, please, because I'm writing a novel, and we'll just sort of fold the novel in, and it will say it's about Kate Bush," which wasn't that hard to do, and the public loved it. I mean, they couldn't print enough copies.
Kate Bush and her manager Jeffrey Epstein.
That's right. That's right.
It's freaking awesome. I love it.
So
there's the book, and then there's the new music, the new Freudian Sluts music, and well, that's good, because one of the singers that we used was an Italian actress, and between the three of us, I get the impression she might smoke a little bit too much, because she has a very, very smokery voice. But that worked well for my song Dangle, which is essentially about, well, it ends with a vision of Mussolini dangling, when the partisans got him at the end of the war, and they hung his corpse. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel a similar sentiment about certain current political leaders, and I wrote this little song about it. Goes something like this here.
It goes something like this.
That's right. Well, that's one thing you had to hand Elvis. It was always just appreciate the humility in that statement. He's not saying this, and this song goes exactly like this, which would have been the self-confident or even arrogant thing to say. He said the humble thing, and that goes something like this here.
Something like this. Yeah, that's a good point.
You got to admire that.
Yeah, indeed. Quick question for you. I was curious, not to get away from just you, but have you read all of Nick Cohn's books?
I don't think so. I went off Nick Cohn.
Okay, I was just curious. I've never read his books, and I was curious if there was a go-to one that you would recommend.
Yeah, a Wop Bop a Loo Bop.
That's the one. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one that I did the imitation of.
Yeah. Okay. That's where I was getting at.
I think he wrote a novel, which my guess. Well, I don't know, but he became a hip hop guy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
By the way, for you non-Anglophiles, get off someone means falling out of love or attraction.
Right.
Americans don't necessarily know that phrase, so I figured I'd
what did I say?
You said you got off Nick Cohen,
I went off.
You went off Nick Cohen.
Yeah, something like that.
Which Americans may not know means fall out of attraction or love with.
But if we want to talk about writers,
yeah,
we should mention Ocean Vuong.
Who?
Bells are ringing all over the place there, aren't they?
Yeah.
He's a young Vietnamese American who is the best writer in the English language. And you know what he doesn't have anything at all to do with? Pop music. Nothing. It's completely irrelevant comment on my part. But the world, why not? Why shouldn't we expand our horizons? Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
No, Ocean Vuong, the most gorgeous prose you've ever read anywhere.
Well, I
want to. Did you watch Better Call Saul?
I did.
I have not.
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know that he starts off working as a tiny office in a nail salon. Yeah.
Right.
That's so. Ocean Vuong writes about his mother who owns a nail salon. But anyway, back to me. There's probably 100 more things you want.
Well, I have a question. What have you not done that you would like to do?
When I was young, I desperately wanted to be athletic and admired by my peers. I wasn't. So I'd like to do that. The chances of that happening seem fairly slim at the moment.
At the moment,
we'll have to bring back the baseball seniors league, and maybe.
I tried to hit on Morgan Fairchild once at what's that place called? Beverly Center. There used to be a produce market downstairs in the sort of in the corner.
Yep.
It was kind of posh because Beverly Hills types were sold on the idea that they would go there and the produce would be brighter or more perfect or something. Anyway, so I used to see her in there and I thought, oh, Morgan, how can you do this to my heart? How can you do this to me? So I went to see a movie with my girlfriend and she was there. Morgan was there with her date. And she was sitting way behind us. So I told my girlfriend that I was going to go get us some popcorn. You've heard that joke, that trick before.
Yeah.
And then I walked up and I said to Morgan, we should get acquainted. This was back in the days when my sexual charisma was such that it was dangerous. I'm going to use the word dangerous. So it didn't work. She turned me down, but I was proud of myself for having done it.
Yeah.
Now, how did all that start? Why were we talking about Morgan Fairchild?
I kind of shifted into it.
It's all right. We were getting back to you, and you said, Morgan Fairchild.
Anybody else you'd like to hit on?
Yeah. I saw a photograph today in Facebook that depicted Julie Christie, Ursula Andress, and Catherine Deneuve. And I thought, 30. I mean, it's just Ursula Andress. And then the remarkable thing was that John Derek, married. He married Ursula Andress, and then he married Bo Derek, who looked exactly like Ursula Andress, which
It's true.
Yeah.
so you kind of got the impression that John had a type.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
Oh, so is there anyone else? It was the question. Is there anyone else I want to mention?
Yeah.
Wes Wilson, another early idol of mine. You know who he was?
No.
He was the guy who did the beautiful Art Nouveau posters for the Fillmore in San Francisco.
Whoa.
You've seen
Okay.
those.
Mhm.
Yeah. I used to spend hours perfecting that psychedelic script kind of thing, which is a real accomplishment. Nobody's ever imitated Wes better than I do, I think. And there again, you see my knack for imitation.
Yeah, that accreditation. Yeah.
How often do you get back to LA?
I was going to
I'm
say, well,
sorry?
yeah.
How often do you get back to LA?
Well, I moved back to LA in 2013, and I stayed there for 2 years. I was living with the bass player from Christopher Milk. We had a band called the Romanovs. We actually played in public. We had a sexy young female singer and the guitarist from the Pits, of whom there's a photograph.
Right. Yeah.
And,
70s band. Yeah.
And then I stopped being able to bear being in the same room with my roommate, so came back to England. I'm married, you know.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that what keeps you in England, Claire? Is it Claire?
Well, it's a combination of Claire and what's happening in America, which I find terrifying.
Right.
Yeah. That it is.
No, I get it. I mean, there's a lot going on here that would keep people from returning and coming back. But being and you're officially an expat, I guess.
Well, I have a right to remain in my passport, so I guess that qualifies me.
Yeah. Okay.
And as you can tell, I pretty much have the accent now.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, right.
I'm really concentrating hard.
It's funny how some people pick it up and some don't. Like Scott Walker, for example. I saw an interview with him, from about 2006, and I swear he sounded like he was never left California. Not a hint of a British accent.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. You asked what I'd like to do. I'd like to be Scott Walker.
Yeah,
I would.
No doubt.
I used to do that. I did it at Claire's birthday party. Loneliness is a cloak you wear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. I'd be Scott Walker in a second.
Now I do The Air That I Breathe. And in a pub in Benidorm. Do you know Benidorm?
No.
Benidorm is this really strange place in Spain and on the Costa Blanca. It's all skyscrapers, and when I say skyscrapers, it's like 20 stories high. It looks like Manhattan, but it's right on the beach, and it's a gigantic tourist destination. The Brits go there. And why was I saying all that?
When you say you play, and you do, The Air That I Breathe.
The what?
You said The Air That I Breathe.
The Air That I Breathe. They had a British pub there, a Scouse pub. It prided itself on being a Scouse pub. And it had its requisite gay guy attempting Lady Gaga. And that was ever so enjoyable. I just really couldn't get enough of that. And Claire Claire always brings the house down. And then I sang The Air That I Breathe. And somebody came up to me afterwards and said, I sound exactly like him.
Wow.
Well, I took that as high praise.
Yeah, sure. And now, how often do you get out and do things in public, performance wise?
Never.
Never. No.
Not since I stopped busking.
But
Right.
It's dead. It's completely dead. It's like an original band, from my perspective, forget it. In fact, more than an original band, I have a good friend named Paul Simon, whose brother was in Ultravox, and they tried to put together sort of an Ultravox tribute act, because tribute acts sell reasonably well. Couldn't find a singer. It went on for months. Used to be, I used to use the Recycler in LA. It was me and Metallica sort of side by side using. You'd run an ad, and 2 minutes after it hit the newsstand, 45 people would have called saying, yes, I'd like to try out. I'd like to audition.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen anymore.
Well, John, believe me, I know. I mean, my music festival is founded on showcasing original acts, and it's hard to get people to come to those shows if they haven't heard of the band.
Yeah.
They will go to tribute shows and go out to see DJs and stuff.
Yeah, I know.
It's really, really difficult. You're right.
Well,
So
difficult there, but difficult here. I thought it would be better here with pub culture, but there's no music at pub culture anymore unless a tribute to Oasis.
Yeah.
Right.
So your focus will be more online with your comedy via the SoundCloud that we could look at, YouTube, things like that. So
oh yeah,
I hope people check it out. We'll run that link again around the bottom. So make sure you stop by John's SoundCloud page, make a little bit of a stir so we can shake things up at the BBC.
We have to wind things up, but I just have one last question for you, John. Do you have any regrets at all, or are you happy with everything, the way things have turned out?
I'm absolutely consumed by regret. Consumed by it. I mean, it eats me alive.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I come across as like funny, charming, sexually charismatic. There's some of that left.
Obviously.
I'm consumed by regret.
No, I'm sorry about that. But one thing we don't regret is having had you as a guest.
That was pretty nice. Pretty nice. Well, it was my great pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, David and Mark.
Yeah, our pleasure, John. Thank you so much, and best wishes with anything you decide to do, and just keep doing what you're doing, because
yes,
we need you around, making everything as reverent as it is, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Likewise.
My great pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you, John.
Have a wonderful evening. Stay happy.
See you soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, David. John Mendelsohn.
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 I didn't know that until today either. But
yeah.
Well, we knew this one would be a little bit different, and it was, but in a very, very cool and obviously very unique way. John is his own man, and
He's one of a kind.
Always has been, and sometimes to his detriment, but often to his benefit. And even though he says he has tons of regrets, he seems like a pretty happy guy, and I certainly hope he is.
Yeah, no, it's that's what you hope. I mean, he's obviously a very interesting character. He's done a lot of things, and a lot of people,
much of which we didn't even get to. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's just only because we like to let our guests just kind of get into their thing, and obviously he wanted to go down some different roads, and his mind works a little differently than many of us, and we just kind of let it go. So that's true, but it makes it interesting, and he's quite an interesting fellow. So, but that's what we try to get here at Material Issues. We don't do the same thing every week.
No, absolutely not. And speaking of following weeks, right now we don't have anything scheduled guest-wise for the next couple of weeks. But even if we don't happen to fill those slots with guests, we'll do our usual thing together. We'll do some potato chipping, some Stump the Bash, some talking about new releases, reissues, the usual fun stuff. But on September 21st, and now I don't have the book in front of me again, so I have to go get it.
Yeah, it's coming up, September 21st.
On September 21st, we have the great auteur, maybe the biggest fan of the Beach Boys ever, David Leaf. And this is his new book, God Only Knows, the story of Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys, and the California Myth, which was originally written about 40 years ago and came out to a lot of great fanfare. But over the years, people have been asking for updates. Obviously, so many things have happened with the band, particularly Brian. Tim, you don't end sentences with prepositions on Material Issues. So now he has to say appropriate in asshole to me. Anyway, this is the updated version, which that is John Borak. And that's a line from another Beach Boys book called Heroes and Villains. The truth value of which is highly questionable. But this book, you're going to get lots of truth. It's already out in the UK. Probably some people who are watching have it. But it will be out in the US on the 22nd, which is Rena's birthday. So not that this would be the present she would necessarily want, because she's not a huge Beach Boys fan. But I certainly love it. I've been reading through it. I haven't finished yet. But yeah, what I've read, I love. And he's just a really talented author and a really cool guy. So we're looking forward to David Leaf on September 22nd. And as always, on September 21st, pardon me. And as always, we have irons in the fire. But next week, I'll be in Vancouver doing International Pop Overthrow from Wednesday through Saturday at a great venue called Lana Lou's. We've never been there, but every act that I've spoken with loves it. And Lana's a very cool owner. Oh, stop it, John Borak. I'm not gonna speak of the incident that John's referring to, but it's not in good taste on Material Issues. But at any rate, we're gonna have a lot of fun in Vancouver, and we'll be doing the next episode with me in Vancouver. Right. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll be in Arlington, Texas, doing International Pop Overthrow, sponsored by Spider Pop Records, the good people at Spider Pop. And that should be a lot of fun. I remember last year we interviewed Bruce Brodeen, and I was in Arlington. Mm-hmm. So this time maybe it'll just be Mark and me, but we'll see. But anyway, we always have a good time no matter what we do. And we appreciate everybody for sticking around, listening, as we do every week. So anyway, thank you all so much.
Don't forget.
Great rest of your day and weekend. And
we'll
see you again soon.
If you're on Facebook, make sure you join the group or tell your friends to join the group. And of course, it's always archived on Facebook and YouTube, materialissues.com. So we love it. Thank you all for tuning in. We have a great time together. David, my pleasure. Great to be with you again.
Always a pleasure as well, Mark. Everyone, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Good night.